Well, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some Excel tips and tricks. I know Excel has been around a while, but today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for Excel. So let me just share my screen here. All right, you should be able to see my screen. And if anybody comes on the line, if you have questions as we go along, be sure to ask them, because if you have questions, I'm sure other people will as well. So the first tip, I have about 20 of them, so we'll see if we can make it through all of them. The first one is importing a PDF table out of a document. So here you see I have on the right side a PDF document, and within there, there's a table, right? And I can't really easily copy and paste the table, but I'd like to import it into an Excel document. So knowing the name of the document, the PDF document, I could come over here to Excel and I can go over to data, the data tab, and under here under get data, I'll say I'd like to get it from a file, and it's a PDF file. So it'll ask me the name of the file, and my file is under my trainings document folder, and it's the document with tables. So I can select that PDF document and say import, and it'll go out and scan and detect what tables I have in this document. This particular, I have one table in there, and it's this one here, and it is like the one I have there. I can simply load it, or if I need to take out some columns or rows, I can transform the data. It'll bring up the table, and I can just, I can remove columns, remove rows, keep rows. But in this case, I'll just say, yeah, I'm gonna close this and just go ahead and do the load function like I had it initially. So I'll say close this and load the table. It says there's four rows loaded, and I can spread this out. And at this point, I can sort and do other things that I normally would do in an Excel document. But that is a way to bring that in. So the next tip I have, let me move this thing that keeps popping up here. Okay, I don't need to say that. Let me close out this PDF. And let me open up Excel now. I'm going to open up an inventory, and I want to analyze some inventory that I have. It's just a spreadsheet. So it was formerly ideas, but now it's analyze. It uses AI, artificial intelligence. To get to that, I simply go to home, and over here you see there's a button now called analyze data. So if I select that, it'll go out here and analyze the data that I have here. You can see it'll pick this up. I can insert a pivot table if you use pivot tables. Down at the bottom, it says show all 34 results of analyzing the data. I can insert, here it says a chart about the quantity or the inventory value. So I can insert a chart, and it places it as another tab down here. I can insert the chart. I can also, let me delete that. I can also ask a question about my data, right? So at the top, if I click on that, it will say, give you some examples, right? Like the total unit price by designer. So if I click that, it will give me all the information about that, and I can insert. So that's just a little introduction about analyzed data. And let me delete this, because I have other tabs at the bottom here I'm going to use in later illustrations. Let's get back to inventory. Okay. So the third thing that I have is, it's called Name Flash. So let me go ahead and open up that little spreadsheet I have. So I have 3 different sets of names. They're all the same thing, but let's say that I now have Charlie Brown into 2 different columns, and I want to put all those in the same column. And there's a little formula to do that, or I could simply type in the first one, say Charlie Brown, and then I could go to my flash fill. There's a couple ways to do that. If I go up here to data, I will see a flash fill here, and it will all be based on the first column that I filled out, the first result. So if I say flash fill, it didn't pick up the name example, but it'll fill in all the other names for me. So if I have a lot of names there, that's a big time saver. Another way to do it is if I do Charlie Brown, I can do the shortcut for flash fill, which is just Control E. So if I do Control E here, copy that at the top of, but that's a quick way to get a flash fill. So that's a good tip, is a Control E. The last way you can do it is I can do Charlie Brown, and then I could just drag the corner of that here. I can drag it down, and you'll notice it does Charlie Brown. But if you look at the bottom, here's a drop-down autofill. Here, instead of saying copy cells, I can say flash fill, and it'll make that correction. So that's a nice way to do it, and it doesn't copy the very top. Excuse me. Oh, I need to read this cough. The next thing that I have for you is the geography and map data. So let me just open up another one. I have a U.S. population spreadsheet. So at the top here, I have all the states, all 50 states, and all the populations. So if I highlight these two rows here, by using the top, I'm going to highlight those, and I want to insert a map. So if I go to Insert, here's an option for a map, and I can just click on the map that I'd like. I can, of course, enlarge it. But it's nice because I can hover then over like the population of Missouri. It shows the population in Texas and California. And I'll try to mute my mic next time I do that. I can have different styles up here. You can drop that down and find more styles that you'd like of the U.S. But not only that, if I change this instead of population, maybe I use this for some sales. If I change that heading to sales, now it becomes sales. And if I remove, let's say these, look at there, I click on that link. If I move these, it'll only show those 14. And so if I hover here, there's no data for that. But it will show the last one is Arizona here. So it's just a nice map here I have of the U.S. So, all right, so let me get out of this. The next thing I have is email, an Excel file, or PDF. So what we want to do here, let's say I want to email this information out or create a PDF of it, right? Up here at the top is your access toolbar, your quick access toolbar. I can drop this down and I can customize it. And if I go to more commands, I can add more commands than what I have up here. So I want to drop this down to all commands. What I want to go out and find is the email or email PDF. So if I scroll this down alphabetically, and I will come back up. It helps if you know your alphabet. If I double click on that, it'll add email, and I can email as a PDF, and there's other options as well. So I'm going to add those to my quick access toolbar, and then I just select OK. You'll notice at the top it added two little icons up here, two little buttons. So now if I work on a spreadsheet and somebody's like, I like to have that as an email. If you email me a copy, I can just simply click on this email. It's going to open up Outlook. Of course, it's on the other screen. I'll drag it over. And look, it added that as an attachment for me. Likewise, some people, I like to have a PDF. And I will mention this is Excel, but it does the same thing in Word or PowerPoint. You can add these buttons up here at the top. But let me just do a PDF. It'll open it up, and there's my PDF document. So I can open that file up. You'll see that as a PDF. So that's a nice little addition you might want to include on your toolbar at the top. Okay. Another new feature is it's the XLOOKUP. I'm not sure for those out there who've used the V and the H lookup. This is kind of the next generation of it, And let me show you how this works. I will mention that your key that you're looking for, like in this case, I'm going to look for Nigel, the designer, right? So that's actually in this column. It's not, you used to have to always have in the leftmost column as for your key, but in this case, I just want to demonstrate you can do this in this column here. So the format is just equals and then X lookup, and you'll notice this, it'll start to fill it out. I'm going to tab that. My lookup value, I want it to look up this from the that name and hit a comma, and it says lookup array. I want to look up that name in this column here, and then the return value. I'm asking for an item, so I want to return array the value from this column. Okay, and then I just hit the close parenthesis and then hit enter. So the Nigel was right here. That one will go with the amp, and I can do the same thing with the inventory and the price. I would have to, let me see if I can scroll that down, and then I'd have to modify. Let me try the flash fill. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so I'd have to modify the information here because I needed to look at the C15 again, the same name, right? And it still needs to look up in E2. It just adjusted by one column there. And the inventory ID is actually in A2 through A11. Okay. And you can see that's the inventory number, and then the price. Let's do the same thing here. Sorry, this is, the price is in D. Okay. And I would just have to do the same setting there. So 15, E2, E11, and then the price is in D2. I should have spent more time on seeing if there's an easy way to copy those information over without having to. So here's the price, and that's 2,000. So I'll make that currency. Okay. But another thing I want to show is not only can I return one value, I mean, that was a limitation of your VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, but I can return multiple values. So here again, for the item for Jimi Hendrix, I could say my lookup value on X lookup, tab that over. My lookup value is in this column, right? My lookup array is still under the names here. I'm gonna look into these names and then comma. But in this case, I want to look up the item and return the item and the price. So I want to return these two items, item and the price. So that's going to show me the price associated with the electric guitar. Okay. And then I can drag that down. And it shows, you know, this one here, it's C5. I just need to adjust those. It'll have to be E2 and C. So still E2 and, sorry about that. I'm not sure if these are correct, Jimmy Page. Yeah. But you get the idea. You can have it return more than one value. I don't spend too much time on that, but I did want to show that. The next thing I have is under items sold. Maybe we have something laid out like this, and we want to put our a little heading here for the date and one for the items here. What I can do is let me type the word date, and then if I hit Alt Enter, it'll go down to the next line here, and I can type in items or item. And let's say that I just I'm gonna hit this little space bar and get the date over here. So it'll look close, right? But what I can do now, I can do a little shortcut. It's Control-1, and we'll talk about this later. All Control-1 is bring it up to format the cell. I can do the same thing if I right click on it and go to format cell. That might be an easy way to do it. So right click format cell. And then on the border, you'll notice what they've added is these little slashes. So if I click this slash, it'll put a slash through here, and I can say okay. And now that looks a little bit better. Now we know the date goes here and the item is listed under there. So that's just a diagonal cell border. Okay. The next tip is called spark lines. So under spark lines, I'm going to hide this, and I want to insert. You'll see spark lines, and I want to insert a column spark line. Okay, right here, these spark lines. The column, it'll be a column spark line, and I'll show you can switch to either line or some other type of graph. But if I do a column spark line and say, what's your range of your data? For this spark line, this is my range, right? These cells. And then what location I want the spark line, of course, to be in this cell here. So I'll hit OK. So here's my little spark line. Of course, then I can drag that down to these other locations. Then if we don't want to, here's a column. If you want like line graphs based on what you see in those columns. So these are called spark lines. You know, I was mentioning some about your shortcut, that Control 1 and stuff. Let me go back to inventory, and I want to show you some best Excel shortcuts. I think they're the best. So let's say that we have data here, and we want to sum that data, right? We want to add it up. If you hit the Alt keyboard, hold down Alt and hit Enter. That's a quick shortcut to sum that up. So it'll sum that up for you. So I come over here and hit Alt Enter, and it'll sum that up. Okay, so that's just did I say Alt Enter? I meant Alt equals. So Alt equals. Let me do that again. So hold down the Alt equal sign. It'll sum up that column. Okay. The second one, let's say I want to insert a row. So I'm here and I'm going to put a new row in here, right? I can right click and say insert row. Or if you know the shortcut, it's just Control, Shift, and plus. So if I do Control, Shift, and the plus key, it'll put a row in there, okay? And then to delete a row, I can just hit Control minus. Instead of Control Shift plus, it's just Control minus, and it'll delete that row. If you want to insert a column, so I'm here at this column, and I want to move this column over. I'm losing my notes here. Let's do Control space to select a column. That is to select a column. And then you can also, and I said delete a column. I want to select a column. And to select a row, you want to do Shift space. So Control space will select a row. Control space will select a column. Shift space will select a row. And then I mentioned the flash. The name flash is that Control E is the flash fill. And then down at the bottom, these different tabs. To change which tab you're on, you can see me scroll through the tab. I do Control page up or page down. So if I do say Control page up, let me do that again. Control page down will go, it'll scroll to the right. Control page up will scroll to the left. So that's an easy way to scroll through your tabs if you have multiple ones open. And then I mentioned the Control 1 is open the formatting. on a cell. So if I come here and I say control 1, the number 1, it'll bring up that format cell. And then the last one I have is to insert a note box. So if I'm here and I want to insert a note about this, maybe this row, if I hit Shift F2, I can type information like what's going on in Munich. Okay. All right, that's enough about that. Let's go to auto size. Now, if you have a bunch of different size, like this is wider, and these are wide here, your rows and your columns. If you click in the upper left, this little button here, if I click here and I double click on this little divider here between the columns, if I double click here, it will adjust all of those. And the same is true if I double click a row. So now that this looks more legible, right? The next thing we are going to do is the background. And it's just to spice up your kind of a boring spreadsheet. Maybe you want to add a background. And to do that, let's go to page layout and we'll click on background. And I'm going to do a Bing image search. I can do it from file or from my OneDrive, but let me just do a search. Airplane. These are groups of things, or you can type a search in there. Let's just do an airplane. These are all Creative Commons, so I can use these, any of these, and not get in trouble for it. So let me just pick out an airplane. Here's a nice neat one, and I can just hit insert. So that becomes my background for this spreadsheet, and I can change the size of it. Well, the plane's here. It's hard to see. This is such a big background. Let's see, auto size background, delete rows. So on the blank rows, let's say that I have a lot of, this is a large spreadsheet. Mine's not very large here, but let's just imagine it's a large spreadsheet. And every once in a while you have all these blank rows. What a shortcut is to go to, let's do Control G. And we want to go down here to special. So we want to go to blank. We want to go to blank rows. So if I say, let's go to blank, and then hit OK. So it's going to highlight all the rows that are blank. And now if I use my shortcut, Control minus to delete the blank rows, and then I'll say, yes, let's shift the cells up. And now it's going to delete all my blank rows for me. So that comes in handy if you have a big spreadsheet that a lot of the rows were deleted or something. You can delete all the blank rows. I'm going to, let me skip a few of these. I see we're getting short on time. I want to highlight the ones that are, let's say, I'm going to do a drop-down list. So let's say that I have a spreadsheet to fill out and all this factory locations. Rather than typing all these in, let's make this into a drop-down list, okay? So I need a drop-down list in here, okay? I will go up here to Data and select Data Validation. And here's data validation, okay? And here I will select, I'm going to allow a list to be selected. I'm going to allow it from the list. The source I'm going to allow is this source here. So my options, I want that to be my options. So I'm just going to highlight this and then open this back up. So that's going to be my source, and we'll put them in here. So now when I hit OK, now instead of typing it in, if I come here, there's a drop down, and I can say, okay, I want this one to come from Shanghai, here, Munich. So then I can just, I can just use this as my drop down. Okay. One thing I mentioned is this quick access toolbar. The next little tip I have for you, let's say that I like this flash feel, and I want that to be up here that I want to use it quickly. I can right click on any of these buttons. And I can say, add this to the quick access toolbar. Okay. So anything that you might use a lot is in a spreadsheet, if you hit the right mouse button on it, you can say, add it to the quick access toolbar. Another one that I wanted to touch on that's probably important to people is you could have these cells be read to you if you're not familiar with that. So again, another feature I can add to my quick access toolbar. If I go to more commands and then all commands, it's called speak cells and then stop speaking cells. So if I come down here to speak cells, I guess we don't know your alphabet. Here's speak cells. I'll double click on that, and it used to be right underneath it. But anyway, you have this. Here's one that says stop speaking, which is speak cells. So I'll have one play and one that looks like stop speaking. So if I hit OK there, if I come to here, and it'll just continue to speak these cells until I hit stop. And so it'll speak that, it'll speak that one. You won't be able to hear it, but you can, when you play it on yours, you will. Then I hit stop. So you can have it speak cells and then not speak cells. Another one you can do, of course, is your tabs at the bottom. Right now they're all gray. To distinguish between them, if I right click, I can say, hey, let's give each of these maybe a different tab color, right? So I can color my tabs at the bottom here, and that can help them stand out a little bit more. Another thing, let's see, I'm getting low on time. Let me do one more. How about the inventory date series, the casing function? Let's do this one. When you have, like I have a bunch of days here, maybe I only want to show the weekdays. If I take this and I drag this down, I drag it down, and then if I click on this, I could say, let's fill these instead of every day. Let's fill them with just the weekdays. So again, that's a function at the bottom right. Weekdays, it'll change that. This is only weekdays. Same thing here. If I take this and drag it down, I just want to ensure that it only fills it with a month. Okay. So there's a couple of options you can do. Another thing is I have all these in lowercase. Let's say that I want this to become uppercase. I can just equals in upper, and I can tab that over, and I say I want this one in upper, right? It'll put all in uppercase for me, and then I can take that and I can drag it down. Same thing with lower. I can hit equal lower, open parentheses. I want this in lower, so it has a lowercase. And then this one here is called proper, so it's proper case. So I can hit equal proper, and tab that, and say is this one here, and make that a proper case. So it'll put the first letter as a uppercase. So it looks like I'm about out of time. Well, I have other ones I couldn't get to today, but if you guys ever have any questions, maybe ask me some more tips or tricks about Excel, reach out to me. But we'll have more of these tips and tricks. I think we have one upcoming from Outlook coming up. I know we've done them on Word, and I think we have PowerPoint. So thank you guys for coming out today, and I hope you found this beneficial.